Good afternoon. It's 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 6, 2022. This is the Public Works Committee meeting of the City of Isle Palms. We're going to go down the agenda. The first thing on the agenda is call to order and acknowledge that the press and public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Next item is approval of previous meetings minutes, March 2nd, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any changes, additions, deletions whatsoever?
No,
There
sir.
being none, all in, did you say anything? I'm sorry.
No, sir.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Citizens comments? Do we have any citizens comments?
No, sir.
We'll go straight into departmental reports.
All right, very briefly, for the month of March, you can see from my dashboard, the garbage collection, MSW was up about 60 tons. So for every month this year, we're still up a minimum of 20 tons per month. So folks are here. The yard debris, and you probably see that the island is fairly clean. For the month of March, we were able to maintain service in all of our subdivisions every week. The yard debris was down, and that's because we are maintaining the collections on a weekly cycle. For the miscellaneous or C and D waste, that is up to 32 tons from the previous month, but that's a lot of the spring cleaning going on. And then vehicle maintenance, we spent about $3,500. I did put a note in there. You can see it on the dashboard, and we can thank Robert for this. He applied for and got a grant for some safety from the Smurf to upfit some of our vehicles with the safety lights. And that's the reimbursement. I just wanted to show that and make a note that we can thank Robert for that one. Other than that, I'm gonna turn it over to Robert, unless you have any questions on my dashboard, and let Robert go through his maintenance items.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'll just go through some highlights. As far as drainage, we had EDs back on the island, and we went back in the forest trail to lower some sections of the main ditch there. We have all that flowing, and we are out of forest trail, that one section of ditch. We also moved over to 4th and Palm to clean and restructure those ditches. We did all the vegetation cleaning there also. They were also out at 41st and doing all the vegetation down that. Working on a drainage contingency fund project list. I've also created a list for tide valve installations, and that would be on the pipes that we have existing to the outfalls that would need flat valves or tide valves. We also had a meeting with Thomas and Hutton and SCDOT for the 25th Ave drainage problem, which I'm sure everybody knows about, and Douglas will talk about that after. As far as facilities, we had some upgrading of LED lighting in City Hall. Down at the new public dock, we removed the old flagpole, old signs, and installed new flagpole flags, lighting for the flag, and new signs. Front beach, we cleaned up the corner of the large municipal lot B, added a couple more parking spots. There was some leftover debris from broken parking bumpers and that sort of thing. And so now we have a couple more spots up there. As far as by the restrooms, we have the plumber scheduled to take care of some updates in the restrooms, toilets, sinks, and also repaired a lot of the boardwalk lighting that was broken. We had scheduled DOT to remove the graffiti under the Reach Inlet Bridge. They did that. We also removed an old silt fence down on 41st Avenue that was in the right of way. We also had the final walkthrough meeting at the Marina Fuel Dock. That building looks great. And we also, Donnie and I had met with Ashbridge Environmental, and they are our city's hurricane debris removal contractor. And they were just introducing their new vice president and just getting us up to speed just in case we have an event. Any questions on the other items I didn't read? I don't want to bore you with all that stuff.
No, think so. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Let me ask you real quick of just the compactor dumpster area.
Yes,
I know that there's been a request to move it,
yes.
and just wanted your opinion on that.
I feel that the compactor works well the way it is. I don't know how it would look in another spot. I haven't seen that plan. I saw it briefly a long time ago. I'm open to any new ideas, but I would just have to see that plan and see how that would play out with what Donnie and I are concerned about, just as far as trucks pulling in and out and removing the long 40-yard, I believe it's 40-yard container basically that's down there out of that.
What can we, whether we leave it where it is or whether we move it, what can we do about the rat problem?
I think we need to get an exterminator down to maybe chase some of the problems that may be associated with it. I don't know if it's something nearby. We've got cats down there, but they feed them, so they don't take care of the rat problem.
Poor cats.
Yeah, I mean, rats will, it really doesn't matter how big of a fence or tight of a fence you put, rats will climb on anything. I mean, we know that they're almost in every property on the island, from what I hear from people, that, rats are a big problem. I would have to really take a look with an exterminator to see if there is something down there that is, driving it there. I mean, it is a huge dumpster. So that could be my, that could be my next step, to get someone down there, take a look at it and get their opinion.
Thank you.
Well, I told Brett Jones about this meeting, and I said that you need to come with some plans. I don't remember us discussing him making plans, but he said he was gonna come, but he's not here, so we'll continue to keep it on the agenda until decided to reconcile. We're going to old business. Item A, update on phase 3 drainage project.
All right, this project is proceeding as scheduled. We are working with the engineer, Thomas and Hutton, to schedule a kickoff meeting with the contractor. They're scheduled to begin the actual construction on the road along the golf course first week of May. The Minin Energy has started working on the relocation of a pole, a power pole. So it's progressing well. Regarding the third outfall that the city, it's part of this project, which is the one at 41st Avenue. We held a kickoff meeting with the folks from the State's Office of Resiliency. That is the agency that is funding 100% of the cost of the outfall project at 41st Avenue. So we've started those discussions and providing them information to get that underway. The permit for that, all the permits for the 41st Avenue outfall, they're still not, we haven't secured them. We've talked about the joint permit from the Army Corps and the and OCRM. We've received conditional approval. We have not yet received the final permit. All the other permits will flow from that one. I think we started this process about a year ago, and at the time they said that it would be about a year. So we are pretty confident that we're getting really close to getting that permit in hand and be ready to go for next fall, which is what, according to our last draft of the budget, that's what we're anticipating the construction of that project to proceed. As you all know, the budget also includes a provision to pipe that ditch on 41st to take advantage of the right of way to maybe add additional parking. That's something that the engineers are looking at. And there might be an opportunity, which we're evaluating, to request an amendment to the grant that we've received. So that it would be, whether or not they would approve that to be covered as part of our grant application. So we're having those discussions internally and with the staff, the consultant that we hired to write the grant, and also the staff from the state's Office of Resiliency.
Questions, comments? Thank you for that report.
You're welcome.
Item B, update and consideration of proposals for the installation of improvements to golf cart path along Ocean Park Plaza and intersection improvements at Ocean Boulevard and J.C. Long Boulevard.
So these are both projects. We hired Stantec to help us engineer and draw up plans for both. One, we know it's Ocean Park Plaza, that the purpose of that is to create a safer pathway essentially for golf carts coming down on Palm Boulevard. And rather than having to merge onto Palm Boulevard to turn and get into the parking lot, that we can create a more of an ease pathway for them to do so safely. So we have those plans. We got the encroachment permit from SCDOT. Part of these improvements encroach onto private property. So Douglas has already initiated the conversations with the beach company because we would need their express approval for that. We've sent them the plans, we sent them the encroachment permit. We're just waiting to hear back from them to see whether or not they have any issues.
Is this the proposal for $12,000?
Yes, that is one. However, I believe we've received additional proposals since we've sent out the packet. The lowest bid that we have is $5,500. I think that $12,000 included the addition of a sidewalk, so some concrete for that. It's all going to be gravel. So we've corrected that and we have additional bids to consider. So that the expenditure for that one, that's something I can approve. It's under my threshold under the procurement code, so we can do that internally once we're ready for construction. The second one, which is the intersection improvements at Ocean Boulevard and J.C. Long Boulevard. This is something that we've talked about for a while. It came as a recommendation or a suggestion from one of our businesses down there. The center median right in front of the Windjammer was inhibiting the ability for vehicles to continue on Ocean Boulevard when a delivery truck was parked in front of the Windjammer. They would have to wait, and it just created traffic backup. So we hired Stantec and had them look at it and make some recommendations. And essentially they developed plans that would eliminate the corner of that center median. It would eliminate the motorcycle parking that's on the ocean side of that median, but would give enough space for vehicles to continue to kind of drive along or next to a delivery truck when it's parked and continue the flow of traffic. We brought this up at the IOP, the quarterly meeting that we have with island businesses, and they were very enthusiastic about this project. So the proposal that we received for that is around $22,000. We are suggesting, so our current budget FY22 in state aid tax has $70,000 that are earmarked for sidewalk improvements on Ocean Boulevard between 10 and 14. We're not going to use all of that by the end of this fiscal year on sidewalk improvements. So we would want to allocate a portion of that for this project for the construction. This is something we started this year, just allocating $70,000 for, I think for the next budget, I would like to expand that, not only sidewalk, but any infrastructure improvements. As you all know, we own that section between 10th and 14th. So anything that happens, it's on us. So we may want to expand that. But that is our proposal. We're recommending approval. We would need council approval because it's not specifically listed as a project in the budget, but we do have identified funds to pay for the construction.
How long have the plans been at the beach company?
I think this week.
Yeah, so that's the first project that's different from this one. But I will say on the Ocean Park Plaza project, we had anticipated and expected all of the work to happen in the right of way. So we only learned that the DOT would not allow it entirely in the right of way a couple of weeks ago. So we've just reached out to the beach company this week. So the plan has changed a little bit to be basically on the beach company's property almost entirely, the work. So the person I spoke with was very kind of receptive to the idea, but she was going to run it up to her owners and see how they would feel about it.
Just want to hopefully get this in before we get in the high season.
The second project, though, is there other quotes on it other than this one?
So this is one that we tried to get, I think we tried to get 4 on this one. At the time of the packet, we only had one from True Luck for 22,000. We did receive a second one just in the last day or so, but it was higher. It was 28,000 from Diva D Construction. So the one in your packet is the lowest one that we have so far.
And the basis for this project again is safety or traffic flow or what?
Traffic flow. Yeah, this, as Desiree said, when that project was designed, the box trucks that made deliveries were smaller. And those intersections specifically were designed to allow them to pull into that intersection and traffic to flow around them. Since that time, the delivery trucks have gotten bigger. So when a delivery is made, it backs up the traffic. You can't get through the intersection. So it was brought up by the business owners. Police department has confirmed that it is indeed a real problem when it's busy down there.
So Desiree, back to the Ocean Park Plaza.
Mhm.
If you were to speculate, you think this could be in by May 31st or Memorial Day?
I don't know. It depends on how quick the beach company gets back to us with their express approval. And then I don't know if the proposal has
It's a very short.
yeah, they said it would be a couple of days worth of work. So in terms of being able to quickly get them authorized and ready to go, we shouldn't have a problem. Hopefully, I mean, we certainly want to meet that goal as well.
I've talked with the beach company before on several projects. And they've always been very receptive, whatever we wanted to do. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving
So-
on.
So do
So,
we need to make a motion?
yeah, I mean, I would,
For this?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion that we approve the recommendations on Ocean Boulevard and J.C. Long Boulevard as proposed in the packet.
Excuse me, sir, do you mean Ocean Park Plaza?
No,
Or are you're just talking about the?
the second one. Yeah, I don't think we have to do one for the first part.
That's right.
But the second one, I think we'd need a motion. So I motion that we move forward with that project.
Second. Any discussion? To be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, discussion of request from the dean to relocate existing compactor located at the small municipal parking lot.
I believe Brett Jones just emailed us right before this meeting with a copy, not to scale, of a drawing of what he is suggesting. I would, because we haven't had a chance to look at it, I would like to go back, look at it, see if we can get it to scale. In the meantime, Robert will engage the services of an exterminator so that we can try to do more than what we're currently doing regarding the rat population. But I think that's all.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we place as a placeholder, the upcoming budget, $100,000 in case this works out, that we do move the compactor. If we don't, but I would like to get in the budget.
What in the budget?
He wants to put,
I'm just recommending it to Ways and Means. We set aside a placeholder in case this project comes to fruition.
Just a point of it. Would we have time next month to still talk about what the proposal is and still get it into the budget? Or is there time on the budget process?
The next budget.
23, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because if we talked about it at the April meeting, was there still time? Or we are in the April meeting, in the May meeting, to be able to get it into the budget?
I don't know what the mayor would say, but I think he would probably be looking for some direction ahead of time.
Well, our budget calendar shows you all, city council considering first reading in May and having second reading and ratification in June.
So what's answering my question? We could talk about
You
it at
could.
the May
You-
meeting and get it in, because I would like to see what these plans say before we put, and get more of kind of a idea of what it is before we just put some arbitrary number in.
It's just, it's a
It's a
placeholder,
placeholder, yeah.
nothing firm at all. I don't want to get to the window and people say, well, it's too late. All it is placeholder. So I make that
All
motion.
right, second.
Further
You got it,
discussion?
Nicole?
I got it. I just, it's to move a compactor. That's what we're-
So no, the
that's-
motion is to put a placeholder in the FY '23 budget of $100,000 for a potential relocation
Gotcha.
of the
Okay, that's
existing
what I-
compactor.
Got it.
There's potential. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes.
Can I just say one more thing
Sure,
about that
absolutely.
project? Because I went out there and met Brett out there and looked at it. And I know, Donnie, I wanted to get with you, but COVID and a lot of other stuff came in the way to getting out there. But I would very much, it was messy out there. There was debris and stuff. I don't know how, and I know I see on here that you cleaned it. I don't know the frequency that we go out there and pick up the trash and do different things. I think that's one thing that could help it. Aesthetic, I would also like, in addition to what Brett suggested, that you guys come forward with some kind of proposals that you think that also could improve that whole operation out there. I don't know if we can enclose it more, to isolate it, make it more aesthetically appeasing, or other options other than to spend $100,000 to, move it over to here. But I would like to entertain other options and get your input on it.
We can work on that and bring forward some
Yeah.
other options to consider.
Because I can see where it's an issue, but there may be other ways to solve it other than to just move it as well. I don't know. I'd just like to make sure we exhaust all possibilities.
Very good. New business item A, I'm of the understanding that we're going to postpone.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a misunderstanding between us and in Davis and Floyd. They're planning on coming at your next meeting in May.
Okay.
So we'll just, we're excited to hear from them,
Very good.
but they're not coming today.
Very good, thank you. Item B, discussion of existing requirements related to new development and submittal of a stormwater management plan. This has to do with homeowners have, a couple in the past year called me and said that they tore the house down next door to them. Then they come in, they bring in fill to build get the start of the foundation up higher. What happens is it causes a drainage problem. Although I do understand they are supposed to submit a plan. I'm sure Douglas will address that in a moment. But it's been a problem for homeowners at where their lot never flooded before. In some cases, it is now. So I guess Douglas would.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give an overview of the current state of affairs as it relates to lot filling and development. Talk a little bit about what's going on in the future. So currently, before any project disturbs more than 625 square feet with new surfacing, so that gets a large pool, it gets every new house, really kind of anything of substance. Before that happens, the owners have to engage a surveyor to identify what the existing topography is. They then have to hire a stormwater professional, and that is a licensing requirement that's established by the state of South Carolina as either a landscape architect or a civil engineer. So those are the two that can do stormwater plans in accordance with the state law. The owner has to hire one of those two, and they have to develop a plan that shows exactly the current state of elevation and then what they're proposing in terms of new elevation. And the maximum that can be brought up is 1 foot above the road. So there's a limit to how much they can bring up, but they can come up to 1 foot above the road. But that stormwater professional has to certify. There's a certification statement that goes on there that says, I hereby certify that if the work is done in accordance with these plans, this project will not adversely impact the neighbors, the adjacent roadways or drainage systems. So that gets done at the permitting phase, and then as it progresses, there are documents that document what the actual elevations are, and we have to verify that what they got approved matches what actually happened in the field. So that all happens during the construction process. And if they satisfy all of those requirements, they're then, they're given a certificate of occupancy and they're allowed to occupy the house. We have had on occasion, folks say, I understand it, that they followed the letter of the law. They had an engineer involved, but we still are seeing water where we did not previously see water. That's when that happens. There's not a lot I can do. If they've met the letter of the law, that, I am bound to issue them a CO. The sequence that I just laid out for you is something that the Planning Commission worked for a long time in gathering up how other communities do it. And I would say that we are probably the most stringent as it relates to adding fill to a property. Others have followed. Sullivan's Island now is very much, they very closely mirror what we do. But communities are not doing a lot more than that, a lot more than what we're doing, if any more. Historically, prior to the adoption of that code, it was seen purely as a civil matter. If one neighbor did something that damaged another neighbor, the two would just battle it out civilly, and the city would be out of that fray. But now we're in it a little bit in getting these plans. So that's the current state of affairs as it relates to drainage. I will tell you that part of what Davis and Floyd is doing is this master plan, project that they're doing, they are reviewing all of our requirements, and they're going to come up with suggestions as to, first of all, if we're kind of putting too much water into the stormwater system, because they now have analyzed the existing system down to the inch and know what it can tolerate, what it can take. So they'll be able to kind of connect the dots between what our laws are allowing to happen and if that's going to put us back behind the 8 ball with our drainage infrastructure in the out years. But I think they'll be here next month. They'll be kind of they have not started that part of the work. They're very much in the modeling and data collection phase now. They're going to report that to you next month and show you kind of where they are. But I think it would be a good point, and they're obviously well aware of the need to look at the existing standards, but that'll be wrapped into their work product. And they would be completing that by the end of this year.
Comments?
One minute. How do you deal with the issue of if you've got an existing house, older house, somebody builds a new house, and the older house, all their stormwater was going to the lot?
Yes, that a lot of times is the problem. So
the backup isn't because they're
That's
getting
correct.
new storm. They're just now having to collect their own. How does the city deal with that?
So that is, that as I understand it, case law prohibits or keeps an owner from having to accept forever and ever his neighbor's water. So if he's been accepting it for years, and he stops accepting it, I think the case law has kind of determined that he's okay to do that. So I would say that that is not addressed in our current code, but it happens. And that basically the courts have said that's an acceptable thing to happen. And I'll be honest, it's very hard to determine, and we get a lot of calls with, we'll have a storm and people will call and say, hey, it's never been like this. And we don't know, and it's kind of in Robert and Donnie and my court to look at it to see what's changed. A lot of times nothing's changed. It's just, there's kind of a new normal in terms of where puddles are creating and the travel courses of the waters that we can't, we don't have the ability to figure that out. So that happens. It does happen frequently where somebody will say, hey, we don't know what it is, but it's different. If in those situations, if there's ever a new house, that new house always gets pointed as the reason. I mean, I can understand that. It is the obvious thing that's changed in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
So, depending on what Davis and Floyd come up with, we might be open to some tweaking of the ordinance.
Yeah. I mean, it is always being modified. I mean, every year it's a little bit different. We have historically ratcheted down the allowable impervious surfacing. So kind of each year, every couple of years, it gets improved, I would say. So still not perfect. There's still, a lot of water that stands after storms, and hopefully some of the infrastructure projects will also help to alleviate the problems people see.
Okay, thank you very much. Item C, not at this time, sir. We have citizens' comments at the first of the meeting about ordinance. I'm not allowed to allow any comments at this point. You're welcome to call Douglas or me, and at any time, and at the next meeting when Davis and Floyd's here, if you'd like to speak during citizens' comments, you'd be more than welcome to. Unless someone wants to call for a suspension of the rules of order.
I'll call for the suspension of rules of order.
Okay, we have a call for suspension of rules of order to allow citizens to speak. I'll second that. We have to have a vote on that to allow it. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Please come to the podium, sir. State your name and address.
Hey, I'm Wallace. Can y'all hear me? Wallace Bonds, 406 Carolina Boulevard. Jimmy, we just talked on Sunday. So you told me the order that this was going to be given at the meeting today. I didn't realize I was supposed to speak at the
Right.
beginning. So that's
It's
why I
fine.
didn't say anything. So, okay, you told me it would be under new business. So that's why I kept my mouth shut till then.
Okay.
So, okay, so I would like for y'all to know, because as Douglas said, this happens frequently, and I've worked with Douglas to get this happen on my property. They came in and built the house next door. I want to give you the homeowner's perspective on this. And the reason that I took the time to come down here, I have neighbors that this have happened to. Again, Douglas says this happens frequently. So what happens is they come in, they build a house next to you. You can prove that the water's come in and change it. And I've had to erect little brick walls around my yard to manage the water. So this is kind of a large example. I mean, we think about the Grand Canyon, okay? That's the Grand Canyon is made by water running down there and eroding it over the years. So if you continue to let it happen to your property, when they come and build a house up next to you, because they build it up and the water comes over, then eventually you're going to have foundation problems and all kinds of stuff with this water coming over, okay? So I went to Douglas's office. He sent me to the sergeant or whatever, and the sergeant said I said, well, if somebody came over and spray painted my house, that would be vandalism and that would be against the law and they could do something about it. But apparently it's not against the code for them to, if they submit this plan properly and do it properly, to do that. You can do it. They can build it up as long as the plan is signed off by whatever. I had another civil engineer come in and say, no, there's an issue with the way they did it that's causing this. They still got a certificate of occupancy issued, even though it went through the Olive Palms to try to do the proper way to get it, to have the builder fix what they had done, which I think they could have fixed it pretty easily. They didn't. So then your only recourse is to go to court and try to sue the civil engineer, the landscaper, the builder, all these people, okay? Which I did. And got to the point where I consulted with 3 different attorneys to find out how this would play out. And they all said, yeah, what happens is now we go to the insurance companies and you get a settlement and you'll win. So I consulted with 3 different attorneys and said, you know, you'll win a settlement from all these. And I said, well, I don't want that. I want it fixed. As I had told Douglas, I'd like the code to be fixed so this doesn't happen to people going forward. But apparently, again, according to his email to me and what he just said, it happens frequently. So I think it's worthy of your attention to try to fix this for current homeowners, for when people come in and build up next to them and do this to them. Because it's going to continue to happen as we continue to build these big houses. They need the build up. They need that to get it done, to build the house right. But the people who have the current houses next to them are going to continue to suffer. So it's not just me. My neighbor behind me is getting additional runoff. He didn't want to make an issue with it. He's pretty wealthy, so he's just going to pay to have some landscaping done in his yard to figure it out. You know, my solution is to erect little brick walls around my yard to manage the water as it flows over from the neighbor, which is not something I should have to do, but luckily I've got twin 14-year-olds, so coming by manual labor is pretty easy for me to build little brick walls. So, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right at all. I think it's bad that the Isle of Palms lets it happen. And once you issue a certificate of occupancy, you're done. The builder's gone. They're in the wind. The landscaper's gone. They're not going to help you out. And it becomes a issue where something you just have to deal with, or you can go sue people. And I believe Mr. Hahn said, and something I read in the paper, that the reason you sue people is either to get money or to set a precedence. Okay. So I got to the point where it was time for me to settle, and I dropped it. I didn't want to do that. I don't want people to pay higher insurance. I want the thing fixed so it doesn't have to happen to people going forward. So I would hope that you guys, working with Douglas or whoever, this engineering company or whoever, can get it fixed. I own a boat slip down at Wildlands Yacht Harbor. The guy next to me is a civil engineer. He said he gets sued all the time for stuff like this. I'm like, how ridiculous that you get sued all the time for this kind of stuff. So I just think it's something that can be fixed by writing the code different. I'm not an attorney. I don't know how to write city codes, but I think you ought to be able to write it to where there's some kind of process that after they've done all this work and it's up to whatever snuff, and then it's still happening and it can be proved that it's happening, that you can go in and have the builder fix it before they get a certificate of occupancy to the neighbor's satisfaction.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sorry for being out of order
That's
and out of
okay.
turn.
I didn't
So
explain to you properly the procedure
it was,
when we were talking on the phone.
it's all good.
It's just,
So
it's good.
I appreciate it. So,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank y'all.
Thank you. Item C, discussion of recommendation by the Environmental Advisory Committee for consideration of a resolution to support climate change action.
So this is the proposed resolution. It's included in your packets. This came as a recommendation from the newly formed Environmental Advisory Committee. Councilmember Bogosian serves as the liaison, so I don't know, Councilmember, if you would like to maybe give some background as to, or
Well,
Douglas, we can certainly do that as well.
I mean, I can give some background in.
It's on page 17 of your packet.
So there's 4 main areas of what the environmental committee is working on. One of them is with climate change, and one of the recommendations out of the climate change committee subcommittee is that we develop a resolution, a city resolution around it. This was their first pass, or what they would like to see as the city commit to as a resolution. And I think it's similar to something maybe the city of Charleston has done. And I don't know how many communities around the area has done something like this, but city of Charleston has taken on this as an action item. This is something very similarly drafted to theirs. So it's the first pass at it, and I don't know if there was a logical place to put it, but we put it into the Public Works Committee as a first place to pass at, looking at it, making any kind of recommendations before we send it to council.
I'd like to make a motion at this time to for the committee to recommend that this resolution be passed by city council.
Yeah, it's still there.
Need a second if there is one.
I'm not prepared to second that right now. Did you want to go ahead?
If there's no second, that's fine. We'll just move on.
What, can I bring up something? I would like to make sure, I've got some edits that I think I would like to make to it before we send it to council.
Okay.
And I would propose that I work, I'd be willing to work those with the committee, the
Okay.
environmental committee, bring it back to next meeting
Sure.
and let us look at it at that point. I want to be able to go back and forth. We haven't had a chance with the committee to work it, but I do think there's some changes in here that probably need to be made before I could see it going all the way through the
Very
council.
good. So the motion fails by lack of a second. There's no further discussion needed. We'll move on to item D, discussion and consideration of pavement repairs at Palm Boulevard and 45th Avenue.
All right, so this area on Palm Boulevard that has been degraded, if you will, it's the same area where the pipes that are taking the water that's collected as part of phase 2 drainage along the avenues, along 52nd to 54th, 46th to 52nd, where the pipe crosses over the road to go to the outfall, which is within Wild Dunes. We've seen some settling. There's a little bit of a whoop. It's consistent from end to end, so we don't believe there's any degradation in the pipe system. It's just a natural sedimentation as part of this project. So this is something that's been on our list for a while. We've got some quotes to get it fixed and get some pavement to be overlaid on top of it and eliminate the whoop. The
Official term.
It can be. So we have a quote for $12,000. We did receive more than one. The quote that's in your packet is the lowest one. We propose using some of our drainage contingency because it's associated with phase 2 drainage to use drainage contingency funds to get this work done.
You need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion?
I move that we use the contingency funds from the drainage budget to fix this.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
Yeah, who owns the road though?
It's an
Yes,
SDOT
sir.
road. We received an encroachment permit from them to be able to cross over the road, install the piping under the road
Okay,
to take the water off of the,
so we're responsible for making
That's
sure
right.
that we get.
yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay, call for the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to item E, discussion and consideration of drainage improvements at the end of 25th Avenue.
All right, so this is a project that we have been working and pursuing for several years now. We all know the problems that we're having at the end of 25th Avenue and the tidal influence that, as we see more events of king tides and more rains, and we're seeing more of an impact in that area where the water just crosses over the road, and some of the residents along that end of 25th Avenue sometimes are not even able to drive in and out of their homes. So we, for years, have been working, trying to find a feasible solution to address the situation, and we came to a somewhat of an agreement working with SDOT and Thomas and Hutton. And I'll let Douglas explain a little bit of the details about how this would work and what we're proposing and the city's participation. Ultimately, we're looking at a joint project between the city and SDOT. Will there cover the expenses of a portion of the project, and the city would be purchasing the actual flapper valves that would be installed in the pipes that would be that are going to be installed in that area. The cost of those valves, just so that you all know, as you evaluated, as Douglas explains it, we're looking at about $76,000 for 3 flapper valves that will be installed. We do have money in our drainage contingency fund that we budget every year, about $100,000 for this, for exactly these types of projects that come up throughout the year that maybe need a little bit more flushing out than we are able to do at the beginning of the budget process. So we're proposing and recommending that council approves it, but I'll let Douglas kind of explain what the thought process and what the project would entail.
And before I get to, I would mention, I think that the prior project that came out of that fund and this project would put that line item over budget by some amount, 13,000, maybe over, somewhere in that vicinity. We would be slightly over that line item. So this project would include building SCDOT, installing 3 36-inch pipes, so very large pipes, and then building an earthen wall over the top of it. So that road is way down in elevation. It's like at an elevation 5. So a high tide, as Desiree said, a king tide comes all the way over that road and comes maybe 200-300 feet up the road to a point where it's knee high with tidal water in front of those people's houses, and they cannot get out of their property at a high tide. We have been meeting with the DOT. The DOT has very much seen it as, just not really their problem. So over time, we've been able to kind of get them to a point where they would agree to supply the pipe and build the wall. But the flapper valves seem to kind of put it into a territory that they weren't willing to go. So that was kind of the stopping point. So we reached an agreement whereby we would do the valves and they would do the rest of the work and materials. And because of the sheer size of them, I think it's 2 36-inch valves and 1 24-inch valve, I think. So and they're just extremely expensive when they get to be that size. So Thomas and Hutton has come up with a plan. We hope, they seemed out in the field, they seemed very, very anxious to get in and get out. So we're kind of on their schedule, but they did seem to have a little bit of fire under them to get it started. So we wanted to just be sure that if that work got started, we would be in a position to finish the project.
Questions, comments? So this says consideration, so we need a motion.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve.
A second? Further discussion?
I just,
Yes.
for the record, the proposals that we got for the 3 valves are straight from the manufacturer. So we would be a sole source. There is no, we would have to write a memo detailing what we're getting, where we're getting it from, but we're getting it straight from the manufacturer. So that should be an easy, simple justification for sole source.
Thank you for that information.
So this, what was can you elaborate on the discussions with the DOT though? Is it ultimately their responsibility to make sure that this project gets completed and we've just agreed to help them, or?
I would say the opposite. I would say that this has been our pet project for many years. We have tried to be responsive and sympathetic to those owners down there who have been kind of coming to us for years. So we have been going to them for years, asking that they do something, and they have not only not agreed to participate in the past, there was a time early on when we, acknowledged that it was something that we wanted to do, so we would be willing to pay for it. They indicated they wouldn't even permit us to do it. So over time, they have definitely softened their position and gotten to a point where not only will they authorize us to do it in their right of way, but they will significantly participate. We've talked a little bit about what their level of participation would be. We think it's kind of in the $250,000 neighborhood that their work and materials would equate to if we had to go out and have that work done by a contractor. But we see it as our project because, to them, it is impassable for a few hours, a few days, a month, and I think it's just in their grand scheme of state problems, I don't think it elevates itself to being high on their priority list. And they've never agreed, like I said, to even authorize to let us do it in the past.
Has anybody explored the possibility of them giving us 25th Avenue? Giving it back to the city, and there's money that comes with that would pay to fix 25th Avenue and then the problems.
I don't, well, to answer your question, I think we've always known that they would give it to us, but I don't think that, I think we would be on the losing end of that proposition.
Look, 25th Avenue, I'm guessing, is not quite a mile long total.
Oh, and I was thinking just that end,
Take
the whole
take
thing
the
to
whole
Palm.
thing, and that comes with roughly $500,000 from the state when we take the road back.
I was thinking just the end of 25th.
But I mean, I don't know who it was, who would approach the city about doing that? Is that something the council needs to do, or is that?
Would
something
approach the
administration-
DOT.
It would come from council because we would be taking ownership of, a road that, has fiscal implications and just
Sure.
ownership implications. So it would be initiated by the city at that point. Certainly, maybe a long-term option for us. I think for this particular project, they're willing to participate. We finally got them through the hump of wanting, feeling like they do have some responsibility over it, and again, working with our engineers, I think we got to a good solution, and that should be very impactful, very, very impactful for the residents in that area.
Is there further discussion about this motion? There being none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes. Item number 7, miscellaneous business. I know of none. So our next meeting date would be 3:30 p.m. May 4th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Off for
Thank you all.
4:23.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.